Welcome to the Scale Smart podcast. I'm your host, Jacob, and also the CEO and founder of NetScale Growth. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Jason Hills, the CRO of Central. Jason, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jacob.
So, Jason, just kick us off. Who's Jason and what does Central do?
Sure. So I've been in the financial technology space really my whole career and leading sales teams for most of that. I've been a CRO for the last 10 to 12 years, which essentially means I manage sales and other functions like sales engineering, account management, could be product, could be marketing, etc. The company I'm with today is Central. So Central is an interesting company. We are a company that's focused on creating efficiency in the due diligence process using AI. And so what that means is, traditionally due diligence in the financial vertical has been done in lots of different areas. So one area could be, global banks doing, diligence on their cash correspondence banks or on their, global network, as well as in the investor space, it is done on, let's say a good use case is an investor who is doing diligence on an asset manager. And traditionally, that's all been done with Excel spreadsheets and Word documents and lots of shuffling questions and documents back and forth. And what we've designed is a process that utilizes AI to essentially bring a lot of efficiency to that process and replace a lot of manual cutting and pasting and manually re-answering the same question over and over again, where AI is really well suited to do that.
And I think a lot of companies are now transitioning into AI or trying to adopt AI in some way, shape, or form. What are some of the challenges you guys had when actually becoming an AI company and being so heavily invested into AI?
Yeah, so there's a few. I mean, the company, as we dove in and really went all in on AI, one was just learning and training our own people to understand how to use it and how to design with it. Being relatively new and just this technology that's expanding very quickly, we decided to utilize our own resources for the most part and train them on how to use it and how to design what we now use. That has gone really well. We now, I would say, are very good at using AI. We're very good at understanding what we need to be doing and really on the forefront of what's coming next. So the second area that has been challenging is, like many new technologies, AI has early adopters. You have skeptics, you have laggards, and there are certainly people out there who are slow to adopt AI and they have concerns that they're going to wait and see and watch. So the adoption of technologies that are driven by AI is going through a very similar adoption curve as many new technologies. So I would say it's somewhat challenging only in that you need to make sure you're finding people who are willing to be earlier in the adoption cycle.
And Jason, with over 25 years in FinTech, what key experiences have shaped your approach to driving some real significant revenue growth at Central?
Good question. I think there are lots. The key for us now is to find focus. It's easy we're a smaller company, and it's easy when you have this big idea and you have this really cool technology that is a game changer to have the belief that you can go sell it everywhere, right? And to almost try to go too broadly. And my experience has been that rarely works. Focus is important, and to really focus in on verticals and use cases and truly understand those use cases to where you can differentiate just by how well you understand them and how well you can solve that problem is a better strategy. And so I would say that's probably the biggest is just focus on verticals, focus on, a vertical where there's a unique problem or a unique pain point that you can solve better than others.
And what are some of the most common misconceptions you hear about companies who maybe want to adopt new technologies, and how do you handle them?
Yeah, I think if I think about the biggest misconceptions or concerns that I hear today, it's usually around AI and just concerns about there are things like hallucinations, or there are, data concerns, right? So there are real concerns that they should inquire about and ask questions about. They need to hear the answer and they need to understand that there's ways to work around those things, right? Rather than just get hung up on some belief they have going into the conversation. It's very fair for them to have those concerns. They just need to talk them through with us and help, or be open to us explaining how, you can design technology to work around those things and how you can keep your data safe and how you can, separate your data in such a way that it's not really ever touching AI. It's really just going through prompts. So it's, I think being open to learning more versus just going in with a preconceived fear of something and not being willing to try something new.
Mm. And I think a lot of people, you just mentioned it there, or go in with their guard up already instead of actually going in, being open to learn. And I think a lot of people who I've spoke to especially are saying that if people don't adopt AI now or have something to do with AI, they will just get left behind for all the companies that are actually willing to learn and actually adopt to AI. So what do you think about that? Do you think people who are maybe slow to adopting it or just don't want to adopt to AI at all are going to get left behind to the other companies who do?
I do. I believe that AI can bring so much efficiency to, so many tasks, right? There are just so many use cases that lend themselves to having an AI tool that, just helps you be more efficient. And, you know, essentially that's going to just bring down the cost of doing business. It's also going to, increase the efficiency, decrease the amount of time it takes to do things. So I just really believe that companies who are adopting AI and looking for ways to be more efficient and looking for ways to use AI to reduce costs are just going to be more competitive. Simple use case, would be like, let's say like a consulting use case where, you know, consultants traditionally have used, a lot of people to solve problems, a lot of analysts, and they would bring in, consultants who would read a lot of documents, do a ton of research on a company before they start consulting. A lot of that can be done by AI now. And so, a good consulting company can start to utilize AI to do all that research in, you know, quarter or tenth of the time it took for analysts to read it. And they can also, complete their evaluations much faster. And so, ultimately, if you're a company who's looking to hire a consultant and one company comes in, let's say, at a quarter of the price of the others and delivers the same quality of product, that company's going to win, right? And that company's going to take more market share away from those that are doing it the old traditional way. And so, that's just one example. I think there are just thousands of those examples out there.
Mm. And I think as well, to me, it's so strange how the world has just shifted. Like I can't remember now what I did without AI, like ChatGPT, for example. I can't think of what I did before. Like, for example, like with the podcasts, all I need to do is put the transcript into ChatGPT and say, "Analyze this. Give me a good podcast title," and it gives me it. I don't know what
Yeah,
I used to do.
amazing.
It's
It's amazing.
I just think it's the thing with AI, it just completely one, I think it can be smarter than a human. And two, I just don't get I used to have this big misconception about AI, but it's massively changed now, where I was like, you're never gonna be able to replace a human. But now I just think there's so many things that he's bringing out. Like this ChatGPT just released a new like picture AI. I don't know if you saw it, like a image generator.
I did,
And
but I haven't gone and looked at it.
my word, like it is just gonna change everything because I was just having a little play around with it, and I was like, I've thought of about 20 different business models that I can do just from this. There's people on like Fiverr, for example, who would charge like $50 and they can just paste it into ChatGPT and sell the logos. It's definitely. I think a lot of companies should be not scared, but I think they need to try and adapt very, very quickly because I just think there's going to be so many different things coming out within the future. And I got to think what things are going to be out by like the end of this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's moving very quickly. Companies need to be paying attention to this and they need to be testing or trying how they can utilize AI within their business. Because, if you don't, I think there's real risks of falling behind. I mean, for those of us who are more my age and lived through the sort of, dot-com era, or, the real launch of the internet into business, saw a transition like this, in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, where certainly there were companies who chose to sit back and watch and were fearful of the internet, and many of those companies went away. And I think, you saw a real change in how things were done. My belief is that this is going to look somewhat similar. Like, we're going to go through this really dramatic transition of how things are done. And there'll be winners and losers. And there's going to be things that are done so differently that we can't really imagine them now, but those things are coming.
And Jason, I think the financial technology landscape is evolving quite rapidly as well. So what are you doing at Central to make sure that you're always staying ahead of any potential emerging trends which are arising?
I mean, from my standpoint, as a CRO, right, I'm interested in, new revenue, essentially. And so I am actually always looking at new technologies or new ways I can do things, or my group can do things that leverage AI, that make us, better, faster, more scalable. And so there are things I've been testing, like, AI BDRs, where you can essentially start to use an AI bot, if you will, or, agent to do the work of a BDR. It's new. It's got some room to improve still, but it'll get there. I believe it will. And there are lots of use cases like that. So for personally in my own organization, I'm looking for those opportunities where I can leverage it to make us, better, faster, less expensive.
And reflecting on your career, what are some of the common pitfalls you've observed in sales, within business development, within the tech sector, and how do you think they can be avoided?
That's a good question. Common pitfalls. I mean, no, a common pitfall, and there are a few I see a lot. One, not really understanding your ICP, not really understanding who that customer is, truly identifying what that segment's pain is, and just focusing on that. I see so many companies who almost feel desperate for sales, to where they're just willing to sell to anyone, and they'll essentially shotgun approach a market and just say, like, go sell to anybody you can get to talk to us. And I think that really slows a company down in the long run, because you end up needing to serve needs of a lot of different people, and you're not really building something that's scalable, and you're kind of just, unfocused. In my belief, I think a common problem is people who do that versus really identifying a single ICP or a few ICPs, truly understanding them, and then really building your technology to solve the needs of that market. And then focus your marketing energy there, focus your sales energy there, really stay in that vertical, and be willing to qualify out. You see, I've managed sales team for a long time. Lots of salespeople who are afraid to qualify out of deals that don't fit that ICP, because salespeople have quotas, and they're always looking to close deals, which is great. That's what they should be doing. But it's really detrimental to the company if you're not closing deals within that ICP, and if you're taking the company and their focus and their resources away from that and having them go after something else. So I think that's probably one of the most common mistakes I see. Mm-hmm. You see it a lot in small companies, large companies as well.
Yeah, I notice that a lot as well with some companies who I speak to, and I'm asking them who their ICP is, like what industry they're targeting, and they go, any industry. I'm like,
yes.
That could be
a common answer.
Yeah, I think it's good because you probably know as better than I do, Jason, is every industry has its own pain points. Every industry has its own trends, has its own challenges. So you need to tailor your value proposition or your offer depending on what industry you're targeting. So yeah, I think that's a great point you've just mentioned there, and that's a really good LinkedIn clip as well. So thank you for that one.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome.
So Jason, just before we wrap things up, like what are some of the goals you've got for the company as a CRO within the next 12 months or so?
For me, I really want to adopt more AI for ourselves, right? We sell an AI tool. but I want to, turn that efficiency on ourselves, right? It's like we're out talking to customers all the time about how we can improve their efficiency, how we can make them take processes that take a month and get them done in 2 hours. I want to focus that on my own organization and figure out how can I bring more efficiency to the sales and marketing process, and how can I do things faster and more efficiently. And that's, everything from what really, if you think about the whole marketing and sales funnel, I think there's lots of opportunities throughout both funnels to bring that efficiency. And so that's one of the side projects or side hustles I want to work on, is continuing to look at that and adopt those technologies that make sense.
Amazing. And if people wanted to reach out, Jason, find out a little bit more about Central, maybe get in touch, where's the best place for them to do that?
Probably the best place is on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So reach out through LinkedIn, and I'll reply.
Amazing. Well, Jason, I want to thank you again for coming on. You've definitely shared some really valuable thoughts and really valuable insights as well, folks. So I want to say thank you again for that.
Thank you, Jacob. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Speak soon, Jason.
All right.